Hello and welcome to Thursday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic and this colourful new puzzle by Qinlux that we're going to take a look at today. Now, Qinlux has appeared on the channel a few times before, always with absolutely brilliant Sudokus, and the testing reports tell us that this is another of those gems, so this ought to be a real treat, although I am noticing as I stare at the grid that I've got no givens, no numbers at all in any of these cages, and no numbers at all in these little killer Sudoku clues outside the grid. So Qinlux has not been overly generous, it seems to me, although he has been extremely charitable with his use of colours. And this is called Build Your Own Little Killer Sudoku. So that's our task, and we shall turn to that in a moment. First things first, do have a look at what we've got going on over on Patreon at the moment. It's quite staggering. We're closing in on 4,000 patrons, so that's a lot of people who seem to enjoy the content that we're putting up over there. The latest of which is this Wonders of the World Sudoku hunt that we released a couple of days ago. It's getting great feedback, an incredible number of correct solutions, which is fantastic. And if you've not tried it and think you know your Christ the Redeemer from your Machu Picchu, or at least their Sudoku equivalents, then check it out. You won't regret it. And then over there we've also got, sort of on the more extreme side of things, my solve of Phistomefel Yin-Yang Fillomino puzzle, which you can play at a link under this video. And then you'll be able to empathise or at least sympathise with me and the suffering I go through in trying to solve that beast. So that's over there. We've also got the solution to Groundhog Day, which is February's reward by Sed Holleyson. That's definitely worth looking at as well. Now, let's get back to Qinlux. What are the rules? We have got normal Sudoku rules apply today. The contents of each coloured cage in the grid are either a single digit or form a two-digit number read left to right or downwards. These numbers act as the arrow clue of their colour, such that the digits on the indicated diagonal, which can include repeats, sum to that number. Okay, right, so that I think is saying that these are not normal killer Sudoku cages. These these cages are to be read as numbers that we then use for the killer Sudoku clue. So if this is a 4 or 3, I meant to type in 4, you won't be surprised. If this is a 3 and a 4, we don't worry about the fact these add up to 7. We have to read these as the number 34 left to right, and then we go to the blue little killer clue, and that's telling us this set of cells, which can include repeats, have to add up to 34. That is crazy. Well, and that is enough to solve the puzzle. That seems incredibly unlikely to me. So the down clues work the same way. So if this was, actually I better make this a small number because the little killer clue is small. Let's make that 19. So if this is 19, well, if this is 1 and 9, that's how we would read it. We would read it as 19. We would come to this clue and we would say the purple diagonal clue sums to 19. That's our task. Oh, now Mark has put in another thing saying that there is a colourblind version of this puzzle. So we're going to put 2 links under this grid. The first one will be to this one, the sort of chromatic festival that we've got going on. The second one, I'm not sure what we'll do, but we're going to somehow indicate which little killer clues and which cages are connected in a way that doesn't use colour. So that if you do struggle with your colours, and I actually struggle a bit with mine, although you'll know that I do like colours as well. But if you do struggle with your colours, there should be a version you can still play under the video. So definitely have a go. Click on one of the links, whichever one you like, under the video to play the puzzle. Now I get to play it. Let's get cracking and see what we have to do here. So I think it feels to me we must focus on the short little killers. So although that one is the shortest, and that is not helpful because that seems to only have a 1-digit total. Yeah, so this these two cells could add up to as little as 3 or as much as 9. So this square can be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9. That's not a great restriction. The yellow one, though, has a 2-digit total. So there's no way those squares can add up to anything other than a teenage number or a 20-something number. So that square, I think, has to be a 1 or a 2. And the same is true, presumably, of purple here. Those 3 squares have to sum to a 2-digit number. That 2-digit number will either be a teenage number or it'll be a 20-something number. So that square's a 1 or a 2. The next one looks like it's the red. Red is the next. Hang on. Red is the next shortest, but there is also a very long red diagonal. Right, this is where I should have started. Right, let's look at the red, what's going on in red, because assuming I've understood the rules correctly, we are now being told that this 4-cell diagonal sums to the same number as this 9-cell diagonal. There's no coincident digit, so these don't overlap with each other. But the maximum I could make... actually, I could make this quite large total because I could use 3 9s and an 8. So this could be, if we do something like that, although that might put... I know we can't put 8 there, can we? So sorry, what I'm trying to do is get a handle on what the maximum size of red is. But it's not 35, because this would imply that 35 is equal to a number that begins with an 8, and it doesn't. Yeah, in fact, this just doesn't work at all. You can't make a total of 30 on this diagonal. Well, you can with a 3 here, but that doesn't work for the Sudoku reason that would imply that digit has to be a 0, because these 3 squares sum up to 30. And I can't put 0 in a Sudoku, however much the software might like to accommodate it. So, yeah, so this now adds up to 30. Now, in order for this to work, I've got to increase this away from 3 0, so I'd have to increase one of these digits at least by 1 or more. Which digit is it that I can pick? Well, the only one that has any flexibility is this one, but as I increase this one by anything, it changes the tens digit of the red clue. And that won't work, because increasing this total by 1 does not increase its total by 10. So, yeah, so this... I think this is a long-winded way of saying that this cannot add up to 30. So this square is also a 1 or a 2. Which presumably puts a lot more pressure on this diagonal. Because now this diagonal cannot add up to more than 29. Well, actually there is a bit of freedom, isn't there? That's not as bad as I was thinking. But... okay, but ask the question, can it add up to a teenage number? 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. Another 1 plus 2 plus 3 is another 6, so that's 12. So we're at 12 before we get to those 3 squares. Well, those 3 squares cannot be less than another 12. I can make those 3, 4 and 5. So these together have to be, even if we take the absolute minimums in each position, they have to add up to 20-something. So this is a 2, this is a 1, this is a 1, and we are at least, we have some digits. Now, what does that mean? It means 1 is in one of those squares. Maybe we should do some Sudoku when we're doing a Sudoku puzzle. You know I never like to, but sometimes needs must. So this is adding up to 20-something. It's at least 23 now as well. So those are adding up to at least 21. These adding up to at least 23, therefore. Oh, I see. I see what's going on here. Qinlux, you are very, very smart. This is lovely. This square is the one we need to focus on, because this square doesn't matter for the purpose of this diagonal at all. We can make this whatever we like. It doesn't affect the total. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that, let's imagine this was a 5. If this is 25, the 5 is contributing the units digit to this total. So these 8 squares here have to still add up to 20. Let's make that an 8. What do those 8 squares now have to add up to? It hasn't changed. The 28 contributes the 8 itself. So these squares that are not in this position, the rest of this diagonal still has to add up to 20. Now that is it's almost beautiful. Well, no, it is beautiful. It is beautiful, but it's almost, it almost sort of completely gets us into the puzzle, but it doesn't quite, does it? Because I now know that these 8 cells have to add up to 20, but those have a minimum of 6, those have a minimum of 6, those have a minimum of 7 because they've got a 1 and a 2 in the box. So these can be 3, 4. And look, that adds up to 19, which means there's 1 degree of freedom on the diagonal. Bobbins. That is, it was almost completely forced, but it's not. No, it is. It is, because I can get it with the greens. I know what I can do. The greens, these 4 squares, have to add up to something. Do I know what it is? I haven't got a Scooby-Doo. But I can say with some certainty that the green does not add up to 40 anything, because there are only 4 digits on the diagonal. So this square has to be a 1, 2 or a 3. Now if it's a 1, 2 or a 3, these squares cannot be 1, 2 and 3. But I can only increase these squares by exactly 1. Because if I increase this total of 6 to 8, the diagonal's broken. Because if this added up to 8, 8 plus 6 is 14, plus 7 is 21, but I know the 8 cells have to add up to 20. So this has to be 1, 2 and 4. And that means this has to be a 3. And that's going to mean that those have to be enormous. But hang on, let's just settle back on this diagonal, because now we have learnt that this is definitely a 1, 2, 3 triple. This is definitely a 1, 2, 4 triple. This digit, bizarrely enough, I think it can just be anything. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's going to be this diagonal that tells us what this digit is. This is absolutely fascinating, isn't it? It really is. It's so clever that you can build a puzzle out of colours like this and dominoed numbers. It is just so clever. And it's actually extremely fun to solve, which is, you know, I imagine it would be very or relatively easy to create a puzzle like this that was monstrously hard to solve. But this is actually very cool. You know what? This green total can't even be 31. It's got to be 35 at least. That's going to be it can't. Yeah, okay. This has to be a 5. Because how on earth do I get those to add up? Even getting them to 35 is quite a challenge, but they definitely can't add up to 36, because that would require 4 9s, and you definitely can't do that. So this is 3 9s and an 8, which means those must be 9s. This must be an 8 9 pair. I'm not sure what else it means. It might mean something. This one is the... Oh, grey is now forced, because grey sees 1, 2, 3 on the diagonal. So what's the minimum I could make those 2 squares? Well, it's 4 and 5. and I can't make them anything else because they have to sum to a single digit total. So this 9 actually comes back in here, gives us 9 and 8. 9 has to be in one of those 3 squares. Well, I can say with some certainty it's not here, because there cannot be a way of making cells on a diagonal of a Sudoku add to 90 something. I'm not even going to prove that because hopefully it's self-evidently obvious. Now, those 2 squares are 6 and 7 to complete that box. 1 can't be there by Sudoku. In fact, maybe I should just take a step back and think about Sudoku for a moment or two. Which clues have I not used? I've used green. I've used red. Not used orange. I've used... oh, yellow. Yellow might be good now. Look, I've got 13 or 14 here. And a 9 here. So these 2 squares have to either add up to 4, which will mean they have to be 1 and 3, or they add up to 5. Oh, bother. That doesn't work. So these have to be 1, 2, 3, or 4. That can't be 2, that can't be 1, but I don't think we actually know what the order is, unfortunately. Orange. Let's come back to orange. Orange has got to be... yeah, this digit is very restricted, because the maximum I could make that diagonal would be 987, 987, so 48. So this square has to be a 1, 2, 3, or 4, and it can't be a 1 or a 3. So it's a 2 or a 4. It forms a pair with its friend there. So these 3 squares to complete the row have to be 6, 7, or 8. That can't be 8. 6, 7 pair in column 7 now. It's definitely an 8 in one of those 2 squares. The purple diagonal, so the minimum value of these 2 squares would be 5 and 6. So 11 plus 3 is 14. So this has to be, oh, that's not that great actually, is it? This just has to be a digit that's greater than 4. I will pencil mark it in a slightly Goodliff moment. Okay, this is ground to a little bit of a halt. This diagonal I don't think is where... don't feel like that's restricted. This one can't be restricted. I suppose I can get the tens digit though, roughly, can't I? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... no, I'm not even sure I can get that with much certainty. So if that was 8 and 9... that could be 8 and 9 as well, I think. 9 here, 8 here. So that's 34, 35, 39, 48. So this has to be 1, 2, 3, or 4. Yeah, that's useless. Let's come back and look at orange again. So we've got orange. Oh, it's the same trick, isn't it? Ah, yes, it's the same trick. Look, this square takes, well, this diagonal includes the units digit of its own clue. So whatever goes in here, let's just put 8 in here for the sake of exposition. If this is 8, it doesn't matter for the purposes of this. This is either 20 or 40 plus this units digit. So these cells on the diagonal have to add up to the 20 or the 40. It doesn't matter what we put in this square. Yeah, that's it. You can't, look, this square here can't even be bigger than 5. Let's make it maximum. This is a 5. The maximum of those squares can be is 24 with 7, 8, 9. 24 and 14 is not 40. So this is a 2. It's lovely again. Oh, how do I go back? I just want to get rid of that. This is a 2. It really is. It's so clever to use these units digits like this. It really is. It's just classy setting. Now let's keep this going. So this square's a 2. Not a 2, I should say. That's not a 2. Come on. I suppose we can keep using this diagonal because that means those 4 squares now have to add up to 11, because we know these together add up to 20. So these add up to 11. Which is that important? Not sure. No, I'm not sure. I think I'm starting to lose track of where the best place to look on this puzzle is. We've got... I've got 2's here and here. This had to either add up to 4 or to 5. Either way it needs a 1. Yeah, either way this needs a 1. These had to add up to 4 or 5, so it's either 1, 3 or it's 1, 4, because you can't use a 2. And the 1 can only go here. So this is a 1. This is not a 1. Oh, this is the most peculiarly useless 1, isn't it? It's not doing anything. We've got 1s down here. Yeah, so hang on, those had to add up to 11, didn't they? So if there is no 1 in this position, those would have a minimum value of 9, which couldn't go with a 2 because 2's already in the box. So these would have to, if there's no 1 here, these would have to add to 10. This would have to be a 1. These would have to be 2, 3, 5. I think that's possible. But this square has a minimum value of 3, look now, because it can't be 1 or 2. This has a minimum value of 2. So the minimum value of those squares is 5. So the maximum value of these 2 squares is 6. But that we already knew that for that one. This one already couldn't be higher than 5. This one can't be 3. This one's on the red diagonal. Oh, that's it. That's it. This square is where we need to look, because this units digit of the red clue is not 1, 2, 3 or 4. This has to be at least 5. So this total here is actually pretty high, which I think means this can't be, it certainly can't be 1 or 2. If this is 25, those 3 squares have to add up to 23, which means this 23 minimum. So this can't be 1, 2 or 4. Even if this is 4, you've got to make those 2 add up to 19, and I can't do that in 2 cells. This is 5. And in fact, I'll max these out with 9s, and that only just gets me to a valid digit here, because now this, I think, has to be 25, and that's the absolute... it can never be lower than that, because the 1s, 2s, 3s and 4s are not available. So we get a 5 in one of those 2 squares. We get these 9s. That gives us a 9 up here, look. We get a 5 in one of those 2 positions. We get a 9 in one of these 2 positions. We get a 5 in one of those positions. We get 6, 7s and 8s in those positions. We still don't know which order these 3s and 4s are in. I get rid of those minimums, they're going to confuse me. And we go we go, what do we do now? Oh, I tell you what, once this is a 5, it really is, yeah, these 3 squares, I got rid of those minimums, I'm going to put them back, because these 3 squares have to add up to 6. Well, this has a minimum value of 2, this has a minimum value of 3, and this has a minimum value of 1. 1 plus 2 plus 3 is equal to 6, so these must take their minimum values. And that might be important, because that feels like, yeah, this 2 gives us a 2 and a 1. This 1 gives us a 1 at the bottom of the grid. There's a 2 joining its friend the 5 in this domino. There's a 3 up here. There's a 2 in one of those squares. 1 can only go in one position in box 3 now. 6, 7. Ah, yeah, look down column 7. We've got to place 2, 3, 4 and 5. Well, that square can't be 2, 3 or 5. So this is like a naked single. That's a 4. Gives us a 3 here. That 3 tells us that the yellow diagonal is 13. So that must be a 3. That's a 4. That's a 4 by Sudoku. 4 lives in one of these squares. 2 by Sudoku goes here. 2 and 3 go into the grid. 3 goes here by Sudoku. 3's in one of those cells. And all of a sudden, this 2 fixes the 2 and the 5. We are actually doing a little bit better, aren't we? Suddenly a flurry of digits have gone in. This column needs 6, 7 and 8. Must have done most of the 9s. Yeah, look, 9 goes here. So 9 goes here. And that actually means we've done the 9s. This square, these squares are 6, 7s and 8s. That square's 6, 7 and 8. I think 6, 7 and 8 is the new nori nori by the sounds of it. In fact, that square's 6, 7 or 8. 6, 7 pair here. This square's a 5. It's a naked single. Those 2 squares, you've guessed it, they're 6, 7s and 8s. We've got... Okay. Purple. Oh no, purple is still not done. Purple has a minimum value now of 17. We can tidy up our good lift pencil mark. That becomes, oh, actually that can't be 9 either. This is now really restricted. This is 7 or 8. Look, 6, 7, 8 triple. And where does the 6 go in this triple? It's definitely in one of those 2 squares. I've also got 8 pencil marked up here. Well, it's the same effect, yes. The 6 being up here forces this to be a 7. Once this is forced to be a 7, we can remove 7 from those, put 7 in here. This becomes 17, which I know is going to fix this, but I'm also noticing I've just got to tidy up, do my bookkeeping up there. So I'm going to do that as well, if you don't mind, so I don't forget to do it. This 7 forces this not to be a 7. Okay, let's come back down here, because now if purple is 17, the only way I can make this work is if I remove 8 from both those positions. So 8 is placed in box 7. Okay. Now what do we look at? 1 and 2 are looking at that square. So this has become 3 or 4 now. It's definitely not 1. Is it this column? At least we've got 6 digits in this column. 3, 5 and 6 to play. Yes, look, that's a naked single. That's a 5. Because it can't be 3 or 6. That fixes 5 and 4. Locks 4 out of this square. I feel like I've got a lot of 5s in this grid. Have I got enough? Yes, I do have enough 5s. This is a 5. That must be a 2. You can see again, look, double click the 5s. Where does the 5 go in this box? It's got to go here. These squares have got to be a 3, 4 pair. The 4 fixes the order. So 4 and 3 go in. This square should be a 6 by Sudoku. 6 is in one of those 2 cells. We might be able to fix this value now because I've got a lot more real estate on the blue diagonal. I've now got 23. These 2 squares, I just need to get, well, the simple way of doing it is saying, given this can't be a 9, there's no way of getting to a number that's 40. In fact, look, it's just you cannot put 4 here because 41 and 42 aren't even available. So the best you do is go 40. In fact, the best you do is go about 46 by the looks of things, and there is simply no way to make those squares high enough. So this is 3, which actually doesn't do much for us, I don't think. So how do we do this? We've got... Can I place... Yeah, look, 4 in this box by Sudoku has to go there. This square is a 6 or an 8. This square is a 6 or an 8. We've got 6, 7s and 8s. In fact, the whole of the bottom 6 rows, it's 6, 7s and 8s that we haven't placed. We've got 4, 6 and 7 along here. I think... Presumably I've got to, there must be some Sudoku I can do at the top here, I think. Maybe this digit. Let's check this digit. That can be 4, it can be 6, it can be 7, I think. I'm not sure. This digit here can be 4, 8. Can it be 1, 2, 3, 5? Can it be 6? Oh no, it can't be 6. Yeah, just 4 or 8. So it's definitely even, but this can be odd. So we can't get a parity trick on this square. What am I missing here? 6, 7. This square's got to be 6 or 7. This square can be anything again. Ah! Is it... I'm not sure whether it's Sudoku. I think it must be Sudoku I'm missing because... Seven here, that can't be a 7. Oh, it is Sudoku I'm missing. Ah, right, got it now. This not being a 7 is very interesting because, look, whatever, it doesn't matter which way round this 6 and 8 go, these 2 squares will be the opposite, they will be opposite of each other. These cannot be both 6 or both 8, because if they're both 8, you can't put 8 into either of those squares. If they're both 6, you can't put 6 into either of those squares. So these are different digits, and they're both looking at this square. So this is, I think it's a technique it used to, pincers and pivots is how we used to describe it. We've done videos on this, but they're years old. But yeah, this square can't be 6 or 8, that's 7. That gets us 7 here, that gets us a 6 here. Ah, good. Here we go. Maybe we are on the home straight. We've got no 7s in there. I don't know why I said that thing about the home straight when I hadn't actually I hadn't actually proved that we were. These two squares, what are these? Oh, 3. I could have got that. Look, 3, 8 at the top. These are 1, 4, and 7. That's not 4. That's not 7. Oh, but the 7 is on the blue diagonal. This is very clever, isn't it? So now we've got 30 on this diagonal, not including this square. So these two squares now finally have to be equal digits. And you can see the only option that's available that's common is 4. And that gets us all of this done. Look. 2 was, I think, that 2 didn't feel like it's what am I saying? I'm saying that 2 I think could have gone in earlier. That is not a 4. Don't put a 4 there. Why am I putting a 4 there? This is a 7. This is an 8. This is an 8. This is a 6. 6 and 7. 6, 8, 7. 8, 6. 8, 6. 8, 6. Click check. Ah, can't see what that says. Yes, it says it looks good. So that's how to solve it. It's a fascinating puzzle. It really is. So clever. Just so clever. I loved the way that these units digits, this one and this one, affected the logic. I mean, it's a stunning idea, stunningly executed, and it's so much fun to solve. You couldn't ask for a better Sudoku. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments. I do read them, as you know, and thanks so much for watching. We'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.